What is up, Packers fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Draft. Brought to you as always by Brewski Light Lager from Badger State Brewing, just minutes away from beautiful Lambeau Field. They're going to have all sorts of awesome stuff going on draft week. An old-fashioned station, 6 food trucks from all over Wisconsin, and some of the best beers around. I got one of the best guys around right here, Jake Stack. How are you, buddy?
Dude, I am good, man. We're getting there. We're getting close, aren't we? And we're talking about positions that matter today.
Yeah, this is the Owen Reese Memorial. He's not dead, but the Owen Reese Memorial Offensive Line Show. I always enjoyed talking O line with Owen, but he's such a busy guy, and I like our dynamic. I like doing all these with you, and I think that people like it as well. Let's dive into Green Bay's situation and their level of need. They took one last year, took Jordan Morgan, much to the chagrin of some, looking for potentially a cornerback from Iowa. Not a lot of people talk about that, especially after his performance in the Super Bowl. Not a lot of people talking about who Green Bay could have drafted last year. Certainly not me. Took one last year in Jordan Morgan. They also took Travis Glover and Jacob Monk. So there was investment into the position last year, certainly. This offseason, they gave a big bucket of money to Aaron Banks to play left guard. They're going to move Elton Jenkins into center. That replaces who they lost in Josh Myers. Rashid Walker, the left tackle, he will be an expiring and could potentially net Green Bay a heck of a comp pick if you look at what not very good tackles got on the open market this year. But he could be a trade candidate. They could want their draft compensation now, and they could be ready to take their first round pick from last year and install him at left tackle. And there's also the Sean Ryan extension conversation because it's coming up on his end of his rookie contract. What's your take on what their net level of need is at the position?
I mean, I think they're going to tell us in April, like what they think about that, because I think you and I would look at the roster and be like, okay, they're ready to roll. They paid this guard a bunch of money. It must be Jordan Morgan that they're going to kick out to left tackle and try to let him win that job. So they don't need to pay Rashid Walker just from a roster construction standpoint and where you want to allocate your resources. But what happens if they go out and take a Kelvin Banks or a Josh Simmons is sitting there and they just take them?
I get mad.
You'd be mad, but it would change the calculus on everything. Because then you would be thinking, well, okay, so they think they got their premier left tackle in round one. They got a premium player at a premium position. It's probably how they would view it. And then you start looking at, okay, well, then actually is Jordan Morgan supposed to be the guy uprooting Sean Ryan? And so they don't have to pay him. And so it's just, it's one of those things that I think once the dust settles after the draft, we're going to have a much more clear vision of what they want to do and what their plan is on the offensive line. So we'll see. I think it's never a bad idea to have more guys than you need, especially at this position, because there is no such thing. If you got 9 guys that can play, get 10, get another one, So I think that's kind of their mindset. And that's what their mindset should be. And I think that's how every team's mindset is. There's just not that many guys. There just, quite frankly, are not enough guys walking this earth that can do it.
Yeah, I get that. I would be cool with that if your roster were in better shape at other places, and they've got some real holes. And taking an 8th offensive lineman, 23rd overall, is just not the best thing to me, in my opinion. Especially when they've been as good as they have been at developing 4th and 5th round picks into real offensive linemen, or 7th round picks into starting level left tackles, above average starting level left tackles. And I'm not saying that that's the way you should do business all the time. And obviously it's not, as they just burned a 1st round pick on Jordan Morgan, but that's your superpower. Use your superpower. I think, people will talk about the Aaron Jones situation last year and say Goody lies. A lot of times Goody tells the truth. And I pointed out a couple times in our group chat that Goody has said out loud with his chest that Jordan Morgan is a tackle. I guess we're going to find out if he's lying, but I think he thinks Jordan Morgan is a tackle. I think they think Jordan Morgan is a tackle. They're going to lock up Zach Tom long term. I hope they don't go. There's one guy that wouldn't make me really mad, and surprise, surprise, everyone. He played at North Dakota State. We'll talk about him later. But if they take a tackle to play tackle, I would be annoyed by that, because then you're either last year's pick as a swing tackle or this year's pick as a swing tackle. And you're not good enough in the cornerback room, in the wide receiver room, in the pass rush room to be doing nonsense of that nature. In my opinion, this class overall, it ain't great. Jake Stack, it ain't great. Will Campbell, I think is a guy that people like. I mean, I know he's a guy that people like, but he's not going to be a Packer, although he's Packersy as hell when you look at how, his kind of shorter frame. He's a little thick probably to be a Packer, but in general, he sort of fits what they like.
Yeah.
And all of these guys fit what they like, which I don't even know if it is a positive, meaning like a lot of the top guys are short with short arms. You talk about Membu. Josh Simmons is not particularly tall. Kelvin Banks is flat out short. Gray Zabel has alligator arms for a 6'6", 305 guy. Like, they're all Packers types, which means that they're not like these Adonis, right? Like perfect prospect Joe Alt types.
Which is maybe good for Green Bay because they don't care, right?
Yeah.
And they've had success with that, and they're more willing than other teams to let guys with those types of athletic profiles fail. And a lot of times you'll see like a Zach Tom just didn't fail. David Bakhtiari just didn't fail. And that was like the thing we talked about with Zach Tom when they drafted him. He was like, man, his tape is really good. I wouldn't be surprised if they just put him at tackle and said, you're going to play here until you can't. And he's still there. And he's playing pretty well. So I think that's kind of their MO. And so that, to me, that could be a reason for them to maybe take a guy that other teams don't value as high, and they would be surprised that it's sitting there.
And it could go the other way, though, which is, I think, what my level of concern is, which is, well, all of these guys are Packers types, and all of the top guys are guys that are going to get taken, if that makes any sense. Like, your Adonis perfect prospects don't exist. So the Packers guys aren't sliding down the draft. They're just going to get taken. And so Green Bay either has to not use that market efficiency of taking a smaller guy later, or they have to shotgun the 23rd pick on Kelvin Banks and make me sad. Let's have a brief discussion here about the tiering process. One thing I want people to understand, something that we've talked about, and I've seen this in a couple mock drafts, and I think I've gotten more polite over the years when I point out things that the Packers won't do in Mock Draft Monday. I used to be pretty blunt about it, and sometimes I still am, I guess, but they don't take guards, right? They just don't. Folks talk about a Tyler Booker from Alabama. Folks talking about a Tate Ratledge from Georgia. I mean, I don't want you to necessarily just take these guys off your list, but you could maybe take these guys off your list. Their almost entire history of drafting linemen since Ted has been centers and tackles, mostly tackles.
Yeah.
College tackles, guys who play tackle at the college level and then kick them into guard. Elton Jenkins was a center. Josh Sitton was a tackle. TJ Lang was a tackle. Darren College was a tackle. You can go on and on. Sean Ryan was a tackle.
TJ Lang. The only guy that wasn't, like, if you go back and look, and even Elton, like, played tackle at Mississippi State. He played everywhere, right? And so the only guy, and this was just like very light research, but the only guy I could find since Ted Thompson that was only a guard in college was Jason Spitz, the guard out of Louisville. And he was whatever when he was here.
And they tried to move him to center, I think.
They did. Yep.
Yeah. So you're looking at tackles and you're looking at centers. But what are they looking at for, it's hard, I think, to measure productivity. There aren't catches, there aren't yards, there aren't touchdowns, right? So what are they looking at without, obviously giving up too much of what you would want to have folks see in the guide?
Yeah, I mean, we hit on one already. Like if you haven't played tackle in college, they probably aren't interested in you. And I think some of that is just like, hey, if you're in college and you're the best offensive lineman, you're going to go
You're not
play.
playing guard.
Yeah, and so that's part of it. But the other thing is, they movement ability. If if there's someone on the board that is a road grader that is just nasty, can't really move his feet, but once he locks in on you, he's going to put you in the dirt. Like they don't really go after those guys. They want the guy that's the dancing bear, the guy that's got the quick feet, that can move, that can get into his that can quick set, that can do stuff on the outside, that can get to the second level with ease. That's kind of why they love Josh Myers so much. That didn't work out, but Josh Myers, when he was at Ohio State, was really good at that. Was a second level monster. And even in Green Bay, he's got some great highlights of him just obliterating people on the second level, but it was pretty inconsistent. So if you can see anyone, so it's like shuttle and three cone are two of the big indicators of can you move, can you bend to what type of athlete are you? So I think they're looking for like quick ability, like quick feet, but then also like what's your hip flexibility look like? Because both that three cone and the shuttle are very much indicative of like, can you turn your hips and go? And a lot of people think, well, isn't that what you point? That's for corners. That's for defensive backs. Like, yeah, it is, but it's just a good indicator of can you move? Can you change directions? And when you are an offensive lineman, you're going to have to change directions because those guys don't always do the same thing. So being able to mirror with the athleticism, that's what they're looking for. That's what they do. That's what they're good at.
You got any high fits that you want to mention? Or is it just we're out of luck because nobody runs agilities at the combine anymore?
Kind of.
Fair enough.
Kind of. I mean, you have to track down these agilities, and we're just kind of getting into the pro day circuit where you'll see some of them. Caleb Rogers from Texas Tech is a guy that athletically is a really high fit, played tackle at Texas Tech, projects inside, I think, at the NFL level. Our guy, Gray Zabel, is a really, really clean fit for this team. Logan Brown from KU is another high fit. He's like you mentioned, he's my age, but he is a high fit. So there are guys that will be high fits from high, mid to early for this team in this year's draft class. And we'll see. The numbers are starting to roll in, and a lot of these guys have one or two of the things, but it is kind of rare for someone to have like greens across the board, like check, 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 check. So we'll see. Those are a few guys, though, that are already high fits, and if not, they will be either a tier 1 or tier 2. Charles Grant is another guy that we spent a lot of time talking about. He hasn't tested at all, so we'll wait for his numbers. But when you just watch him play, he looks like a guy that should hit those numbers, but you don't know. You don't know until you see him.
Okay. Jacob Morley, why should people buy the Green Bay Draft Guide powered by Packer Report?
I think for that reason. I mean, there are so many good draft guides out there for you guys to buy. A lot of them are national, and they're not niche like ours is. Ours is very niche. If you're a Packers fan, we're going to tell you why this particular person is a great fit in Green Bay, what they would look like in Green Bay, projecting their role in Green Bay. And then also, if they're not a high fit, we'll say it. Like, this guy's probably not going to be a Packer. I got news for you guys. Tez Johnson, the Oregon wide receiver, they have a better chance of drafting Ross to play wide receiver than they do of taking Tez Johnson. So there are things like that that are just like, we could be wrong. I don't know. We could be wrong.
212 right here, baby. I'm all greens.
Yeah. And the day that they do something like that, they have, but very rarely. So that's why if you just kind of want
I'll get out there and block too.
You try to. If you want a cheat sheet of kind of who the Packers are going to be interested in, that's it right there. I feel like we've kind of hacked the draft in a way for Green Bay. There is just so much data for the Packers because, I mean, it goes back to Ron Wolf. It's Ron Wolf to Ted Thompson. There was a blurb of Mike Sherman in there, and then back to Ted and Brian, and those guys are all from the same tree. They all do stuff the same way. It's pretty easy to tell. If you want to put in the time to figure out what they like, it's there. But if you don't want to put in the time, we'll do it for you. Just give us $10. You can have
Absolutely. Promo code daily, by the way. He said $10, it's 11. Promo code daily for $1 off will get you down to $10. Okay. Here's a big question, right? It's the Devontae Adams trade is gone. The Aaron Rodgers trade is gone right now, unless we see, like a Jair trade or even a Sheed trade, which would then open this whole thing up, right? Do you take one in the top 100, right? And that means your first 3 picks, and you've got perceived needs at defensive tackle, at edge, at corner, at wide receiver. I think you would assume those would be a higher priority, but you never know, right? The Packers took 2 off-ball linebackers in the top 100 last year. You never know.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
I just think it's if the board falls the way it could, and maybe someone's sitting there that they don't think should be there, I think they should take them. That is kind of how they do business, especially after round 1. It is weird. This is a little bit off subject, but it does seem like they have different philosophies for round 1 and versus 2 through 7. Because if it's round 2 through 7, it does feel like they'll let the board fall to them. Round 1, it seems like they kind of try to get cute sometimes, but if the board does fall to them in a way that is advantageous to them, they should do it. And I was just going to say, the dream initially was Gray Zabel in round 2.
Yes.
But that ship has sailed. Like I saw you just retweeted, and Daniel Jeremiah in his new mock draft has Gray going 16th.
16th. Get your money.
Yeah. So I think that dream is dead, but that would have been awesome if he could have just slipped around too. But and maybe he still will. I don't know, but not likely.
I don't think so. that seems very unlikely.
Start some rumors.
Yeah.
Start some rumors about the kid.
That unfortunately I will not do. He's a good dude, comes from a good family.
Clean as it gets.
He's got a little brother. I was just looking at the roster yesterday. He's got a little brother, Jet with 2 T's. Unbelievable name, Jet Zabel. Looks just like Gray. Looks like if you took 50 pounds off Gray, that's Jet. He was a big time recruit. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about him in 3 years. But excited for the Zabel family, certainly.
His little sister is one of the best female basketball players in the Big 12 for K-State. She's dumb.
You're thinking of Jalen Sundell.
Oh, yeah.
You've lost the thread.
I did.
Serena Sundell. Shout out Serena Sundell. Shout out to Jalen Sundell. Now we've lost the thread. Okay, so I wouldn't take one. Okay, unless it was Gray in round 2. Then I'm doing backflips because whatever. Then you just have your center. You can move Jenkins to right guard. You can play Gray at right guard. Gray can play right tackle if Tom gets hurt. You've accomplished so many things. Really, I think Gray could play anything but left tackle. I probably wouldn't throw Gray at left tackle unless it was an absolute emergency. But he's one of those guys that the short arms don't show up on tape. Anyway, if you left it up to me this draft, I would take an offensive lineman in round 4 or round 5. Just use your superpower. Whoever drops that you really like, you don't have to wait till round 7, but whoever drops that you really like in round 4 or round 5, take a 6'5.5", 305-pound dude that you think you can either mold into a tackle or just leave at guard and throw him in the Kadeem Telfort, Travis Glover, Jacob Monk soup and figure out who makes the team as the 8th and the 9th guy. Because if you trade Sheed, all that, I guess, changes. But if you don't, then I don't think it changes. Guys that might make sense. I want to talk a little bit about the Super XL stuff because we've kind of argued about that in the past. And I've made a chart, and I would bring up the chart, but I didn't do a ton of prep here. But it goes back to 1996, and I think the tallest lineman that they've taken has been 6'6". I mean, I know it is, and most of them are actually 6'5" or shorter. And the heaviest lineman that they have taken since 1996 is Sherrod at 321. And when I say lineman, I guess I should be specific. I mean guys that they intend to play at tackle, because they have taken heavier guys like Sean Ryan and immediately moved them into guard. But if we're talking about picks in the first 4 rounds, tackles that they want to play tackle, most of them are 6'5", 310. That's where they're at. 6'5", 310. Like a Bakhtiari, obviously, they waited till round 4 to take. He's a little bit shorter than that. But their archetype is 6'5", 306, 307, 310 pounds, can move, like Jacob said, the dancing bear. It ain't these huge guys. I had the Amarius Mims arguments all last year. Before that, it was the Darnell Wright arguments. Before that, it was the Daniel Faalele arguments. I just don't think they're ever going to do it. I mean, until there's a complete reshuffling in the front office, it's just not what they do. So who does that mean this year? Ursary, the giant tackle from Minnesota, out. Cameron Williams, he's like 330 from Texas, I think. He's the other Texas guy, 6'5", 335. He's out unless they want him to play guard. Trapillo played for Hafley at BC. He's 6'8". He's 309, but he's 6'8". That's not what they do. I just don't see it happen. And then Savainea, I've done this too on a prospect primer. So
yeah,
I should.
A lot of outs.
Yeah. Again, maybe if they wanted to play guard, but I don't think they'll take any of those guys to play tackle.
No, and the guy that sticks out the most to me is the Saviania, the Arizona
Savainea.
Because I do think they would just kick him into guard immediately.
Yeah,
and if that's the case, he's a good player. Like I wouldn't hate that at all in round 2 or 3 if he's just sitting there. But we'll see. That would be is he going to start, or are you going to play him as a guard? Like is he going to uproot Sean Ryan? Maybe not. I don't know. But they also tend to be a little bit reactionary sometimes. And we all just watched the Philadelphia Eagles, have their way.
You're talking about Becton.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
But Lane Johnson is the most Packers offensive lineman that ever existed.
Yep.
I don't know about Mailata. He might be a large. Is he a large?
Like 6'8". Yeah, I think he's tall. He's tall.
Okay.
But I think if the Packers could have drafted him in the 7th round, they might have. That's the thing too. Is like these are usually top 100 type discussions where they're a little bit more strict with their rules. And they took Travis Glover last year, who's a big.
Mailata is 6'8", 365. He is not. He's not a Packers type.
I think they would find a spot for him though if he wanted to play in Green Bay. I think they could.
Wasn't there? Didn't they have just a huge guy from Indiana, Caleb something?
Who, the Packers?
Yeah, UDFA guy,
Caleb Jones.
Yeah,
he was massive. He was like 6'8", 6'9", 350.
6'9", 370. So they would maybe would have given Mailata a look late, obviously.
Well, Telfer's huge too. Telfer's a huge man, but and it's weird because a lot of their bottom of the roster type guys are huge. Like
are out of the archetype, yeah. Yep.
Telfer's huge.
But no, archetype, to me, the archetype applies to top 150 picks, usually, in general. Gray Zabel, we already touched on him. He was an All-American left tackle at North Dakota State. Before that, he played right tackle and I think both guard spots, but actually repped at center. They thought about using him at center, but had a really good center in Jalen Sundell, who then also kicked out to left tackle and is now playing center for the Seahawks. They've just been an offensive line factory, obviously, at NDSU, but he's 6'6", 305. He's got short arms, but he's exactly what they like. I think they could play him at, like I said, 4 different positions. His, consensus mock, like his consensus big board positioning is right there with where Green Bay is picking. I don't think they should take him. I don't know that they will, but right now, his consensus big board ranking is like 32 or 33, end of the first round type. Now, could the league value him completely different? Sure. I don't know, but I think a top around 2 type guy, trade down to 30 and take him type guy if you can pick up an extra top 100 pick, that type of thing, that's the great deal. How about this Mizzou kid? Because he's the 11th ranked player for PFF overall. What do you think of Armand Bamboo? I don't see this, but and he's another short guy, I think.
No, I think I could be wrong, but I feel like he has risen up because he is kind of the only guy that is like your typical left tackle archetype. Isn't he? He's like 6'5". He's got the long arms, 6'6", 6'5", and can move.
6'4", 332, 6'4", 332, and then 33.5-inch arms. So no.
Okay. So man, I don't know. Better than most of the guys though in this class still.
Unbelievable athlete. 4'9", 140, 34-inch vertical jump, almost a 10-foot broad at 332 pounds. But ideal size, no. Lee's Summit, Missouri. Shout out to King Frazier.
Yeah, that's where I live. Right by Blue Springs, Lee Summit. I don't know if he's right from up here. He was a big-time recruit, though, actually, if I remember correctly, hearing about him a few years ago.
He's a good player. He's just, once again, not like, to heck with Green Bay's archetype. He's not like the archetype, right?
Nope. A little heavy.
Josh Simmons, very Packersy. So is Josh Connerly from Oregon. I think those are your two guys. If you're scared of them taking a first-round tackle, like I am scared of them taking a first-round tackle, I think those are the two guys to worry about, Connerly and Simmons.
Yeah.
Guys we like. Wyatt Millum, I like him. Not quite a Packers athlete, but he's just really good at football. The center, Jared Wilson, he is a Packers type. Freak show. He is from Georgia. Unbelievable athlete. There could be some Josh Myers PTSD there just because his tape is not like elite. But the upside is there, and he comes from a really good program. And then the other tackle I like a lot, Ajani Cornelius from Oregon. He's a short guy, but he's a Packers type. Who do you like?
I mean, we've talked about this guy before with Charles Grant from William & Mary. I think he's going to be high on the Packers board. He is someone that would not shock me if he goes higher than people expect, just because he does, like, he's got the vines for arms. He's got much longer arms than I thought he did. I thought he was a guy that would have to kick inside to guard. I don't think he does. We're still waiting on his test numbers, but if like Titus Howard can go in round one, Charles Grant potentially could, and I think there could be some silly selections in round one at offensive line, just because it is not a great class and people are always desperate for him. It's kind of almost, it's like quarterback almost, where guys will get overdrafted if you can play a little bit. Guys will get overpaid if you can play a little bit. So I think he's a good player. Wouldn't be shocked if he goes higher than here's his name called sooner rather than later. And then Caleb Rogers, talked about him already from Texas Tech. College tackle. He will move inside to guard, and he's someone that is more of a project. I think. I don't think he's ready to start day one, but I think he does have the athletic profile to be a starter in this league. And Green Bay has flipped those guys pretty often to make that to take guys like him and put him in a new spot, and then boom, all of a sudden you have a really good player.
Absolutely. All right. We'll end this one like we end them all. Will they, gun to your head, will they take one of these guys in the first 4 rounds? Will they take an offensive lineman before round 5?
Yes, I think they do.
Okay. I don't think they do. And I'm trying to keep track in my head because I don't want to say yes like 6 times when they only have 4 picks. So I'm gonna go with no here. No, they will not take an offensive lineman in the first 4 rounds. Guys, thanks so much for watching or listening. If you are on the podcast side, going to keep this short and sweet. Drink brewski, buy the draft guide, and go Pack Go.